How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, Saturday mornings with Jim Valley, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, Sundays with Andrew Zarian. And it is, what is today? Thursday here on the show. I never know the day after a Wednesday night Observer Radio what day it is, because I'm up to like 2:30 in the morning. I wake up exhausted. I look 600 years old. And I'm tired. But you know what it is? It is Thursday. We got a lot to talk about here today. Mike Sempervive has taken the day off. He will be replaced today with a weekly appearance by Lance Storm. Lance has got a lot to talk about here today. And in fact, I hear that he wants to talk about the idea of a AEW. We won't say brand split. I know people get mad about that. 2 rosters, a Dynamite and a Collision roster. So he wants to talk about that here today. And we'll go over all of the news. Dynamite last night. We got the Dynamite review here. We've got a ton of matches announced for the Continental Classic. They actually announced matches, so that's good. We'll tell you about all of those. We got the update on the lawsuit, the Ring Boy lawsuit. We have an update on Ryan Nemeth, who filed a complaint against AEW. And I got a couple of notes on that as well. We got the Tuesday night NXT rating, which was not great. And they're leading into their show this coming weekend. Not a good number at all. Updates on Taz and plenty more. If you'd like to text us here today, 425-780-7566. That is 425-780-7566. I'm F4W Online at gmail.com. I'm F4W Online, Threads, Instagram, and Cameo. Cameos, everybody, F4W Online. And I'm at Bryan Alvarez on X and Blue Sky. A lot to get into when we get back from the break. Everybody stick around. Observer Live. My guess, Lance, is if you unplug the Scarlett and plug it back in, it might work. That's how we normally deal with these kinds of things. How you doing?
Alrighty then.
Yeah, Lance is on the phone, everybody. You know, the older you get, Lance, the more you look like Tim Flowers. Has anybody ever told you that?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you should
No.
start calling me and yelling at me over my my gimmick. Yeah, Lance is on the phone. We'll try and get him fixed after the first break right here. But, you know, we do what we can here. You know what we do? We barrel on through is what we do here on this program. How you doing today, Lance?
I'm doing all right. I've been to the gym already, got my dogs out, so the day's going well.
Well, I want to thank everybody in the chat who's checking in about the tsunami warning. Yes, there was a big earthquake, and like the whole Bay Area up the coast, there's a tsunami warning. And I'm not in that zone, but I'm pretty sure the Cannon Beach condo is. So hopefully everything is all right. But we're all fine, and I think everybody is all right. But that's pretty scary. Big earthquake offshore. All right, let's get into some of the news here, Lance, and then we will move forward. I'll wait till we connect you better to do our discussion about you know.
Roster division?
Yeah, roster division. We need to find a good name that isn't brand extension. That triggers people. Judge has issued a stay in the lawsuit filed on behalf of the survivors of the Ring Boy scandal. So essentially what's going on here is there is a, how to explain this? The Maryland Supreme Court is going to rule on the Maryland Child Victims Act. It eliminated the statute of limitations on civil lawsuits on behalf of child sexual abuse predators. So whenever that is ruled upon, if it is upheld, I guess, then the Ring Boy lawsuit will continue. So that's essentially why it's being put on hold. It's put on hold pending the results of the 2023 Maryland Child Victims Act, which is, I guess, in the Maryland Supreme Court as we speak. So that's the update on that. That one is paused. And as far as the Vince McMahon, Janelle Grant lawsuit, I believe that one, which was paused, is about to be unpaused, like literally at any time. I don't remember the exact date, but it's like, next couple of days. So I would presume that early next week we're going to be hearing a lot of news as it regards that one. Then, of course, we had this. Talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I got a little more to talk about here. In a document obtained by Fightful, former AEW wrestler Ryan Nemeth filed a complaint with several executives in which he claimed he suffered abuse, harassment, and threats while with the company, specifically from CM Punk, and that AEW didn't do anything about it. So he's got an entire timeline here, and this complaint was sent in September, so a few months ago, although it might have been September 2023 because he's no longer employed. I guess it was September 2023. He's with TNA now, right?
Off and on. I don't know if he's actually signed, but he does make quite a few appearances for us, yeah. Okay,
because he was on a what's it called? A per event deal with AEW. So he's got a whole timeline here. He says April 16, 2023, he contacted former chief legal officer Mega Perek, who's no longer with the company, by the way. She's gone, with concerns he would be targeted by CM Punk. June 21st, claimed that Punk threatened him in a locker room, apparently due to Ryan's infamous softest wrestler alive tweet. And he stated that Perek, the Young Bucks, and Tony Schiavone showed him empathy for the incident. He was not booked to wrestle for 2 months. He said he had the support of Jon Moxley, who said, quote, the situation did not sit right with him. July 17th, he contacted Perek about the lack of response to the locker room incident, felt he had been, quote, silently fired. He was concerned his per-date contract would not be renewed. Perek assured him that's not the case. August 12th, in Greensboro, he was basically flown into Collision, even though apparently Punk didn't want him on Collision. They flew him there anyway. So he flies all the way there, and then they won't let him go to the building. And at first, Pat Buck tells him it's travel confusion, But then later he is told, actually, it's because CM Punk did not want you there. Calls Parekh again, requests AEW to do something. He was flown to a Wednesday, August 16th Dynamite, told to cut a promo in front of the live crowd where he would, quote, verbally antagonize Punk. That sounds like a great idea. Met with AEW HR and legal on that same day, was unsatisfied with their response, and he last worked for AEW November 18th. Contract expired this past March. And it says he was one of the people that spoke to outside counsel as part of the investigation AEW launched after Punk and Jack Perry's backstage fight before All In. So, according to the Fightful report, Chris Peck of AEW's legal team reached out to work out a settlement for 3 years' salary in exchange for an NDA. He was interested in this, wanted to discuss it, but then was told it was pulled off the table for reasons that are unclear. He claimed that Peck threatened to sue him about the timeline at one point. Peck said he would be placed in, quote, an antagonistic position to Mega if the situation went to arbitration. There's been no comment from AEW. There will not be, if you know anything about AEW and legal situations. So I guess we'll find out. Really, the big question is this the only one, or will there be more? Because I have heard from people there who believe now that this one's public, we might end up having more. But we shall see. You know, this actually
turn into a big bag of snakes.
It could. You know, this Lance kind of. I mean, I guess it will sort of play into the discussion about whether they should have two rosters. Because when Punk was there, Punk was kind of half in charge of it's still Tony's company, but like it was kind of his show. And he did choose who could and could not be on the show. So he kind of, sort of, split the rosters. Although it was not so much like, you know, you guys are going to be here and you guys are going to be there. It was more like, you guys can't be here. But like, so, you know, people ended up not working together and et cetera, et cetera. But it was not the ideal situation, I think is the easiest way to put it.
Well, yes, but that may not have been just because of the concept of separate rosters.
No, it wasn't. But it was a forced roster split because certain people were not allowed to work on the Saturday show, so they could only work. But hey, you know what? We had people that were only working Wednesdays. If you want to see them, you got to watch Wednesdays. Although Wednesday is not the show we're worried about. We're worried about Saturday. And speaking of, we'll go over a couple of the lineups here. So they announced a whole bunch of matches for the Continental Classic, and 3 of the big matches are on Rampage. I wouldn't do it at this point. This is pretty much a dead show, but I don't even know what's the point of building it up. It's already canceled, so it doesn't really matter. But we have got Daniel Garcia versus the Beast Mortos. We have Okada versus Mark Briscoe, and Ricochet versus Commander. Sounds like 3 great matches. You have to watch them on Rampage. On Saturday for Collision, we got Okada and Kyle Fletcher, Commander versus Darby Allin, and Daniel Garcia versus Mark Briscoe. Also, the Wrestle Dynasty Women's Invitational Tournament, Willow versus Serena Deeb, and we have Mina Shirakawa and Emi Sakura. And then for next week's Dynamite, Will Ospreay versus Claudio Castagnoli, which should be great. Brody King and Ricochet should be great. We got Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa for the AEW Women's title. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly for a shot at MJF's title at World's End. That is a really weird situation right there. And then Jon Moxley and Pac versus Orange Cassidy and Jay White. And then the week after for Dynamite, Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin, which also should be great. And Mercedes Moné versus Anna Jay for the TBS title. And you didn't watch Dynamite, did you, Lance?
I did not, no. I do not get TSN.
What happened with NXT?
I have no idea. It's the second time my DVR did not record NXT when programmed to tape the whole series. I know last time it didn't was when they gave the show a special name.
That happened to me too.
And then
yes.
it wasn't part of the regular series because it was a special. And I don't know if that happened this past Tuesday, but the show aired and my DVR ignored it.
All right, stand by. We're going to try and get you on Skype and get this show on the road. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Now I can't... God. Lance, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, man. The dulcet tones of Lance Storm here on the air via Skype. Finally. All right, Lance. Well, now that we can hear you, why don't we talk about your ideas regarding whether there should or should not be a separate Collision and Dynamite roster?
Well, I wouldn't go too far as to say should or shouldn't, but I think there's a lot of pluses to it. And, I think one of the great examples of it was the star Edge became by being the main event world champion guy on SmackDown, while John Cena and others were on Raw. You can only, we've talked about it for decades now, create so many stars on one show. You can't make 15 stars on one show. Guys get lost. And if you're not in that top mix, you're not, I'm doing air quotes for those that don't have video, the star. So if you divide your rosters, it provides the opportunity to create legitimate 3 or 4 top guys on each show. And I think, too, it could alleviate the too many belts complaints that some people have, because how often do you hear AEW's got too many belts? And they always counter with WWE has more. And it's like, but it doesn't really feel like they have more. Like, yes, they have too many too, but because half those belts are only seen on Raw and half those belts are only seen on SmackDown, it feels like there's fewer belts. And if AEW, as an example, put the trios titles on Collision, the tag titles on Dynamite, and you have your AEW World Champion on Dynamite and put your International Champion or your TNT, whatever it is, make that your major championship on Collision, you have the chance of making more stars. And that's where I disagreed with Mike from yesterday. He's like, no, you got to create the stars first. It's like, but that's the problem you're trying to fix, is you can't make 10 stars on one show or one roster. But if you divided now, because you've got Swerve, you've got Moxley, you've got MJF, you've got Will Ospreay, you've got Kyle Fletcher you're trying to elevate, Takeshita you're trying to elevate, Hangman Page, Jay White, like you've got so many guys. And half those guys end up being second tier guys because the other guys are a little bit higher than them. If you separated, you've got the chance of all of them becoming top tier guys. And I think too, it creates the bonus of, you talked about it when Kyle Fletcher got that big win over Will Ospreay. It's like, well, you don't want to rematch them right away and give Will his win back, and you certainly don't want to beat Will twice. If they were on different shows, it wouldn't be an issue. And I loved your idea of the Continental Classic. The Blue League is Dynamite. The Gold League is Collision, which creates the ability, even the winner of the tournament, that's where the Continental Championship goes for the next year. And the nice thing is, you don't do the draft because that's too WWE. You don't call it a brand split, but you enable trades throughout the year. So if the trios division is on Collision, there's no reason why, if a team breaks up and 2 of them want to be into the tag team division, it's like you announce a trade, you move them over to the other side, and they compete in the tag team division. And it allows more people to be featured. And then the big thing, which I think you were primarily
I'll make one comment here. Yeah, I think that they should do a brand split, okay? People are like, WWE. I just want 2 different rosters, okay? I never, not one time ever, said that there should be a draft, okay? I don't even think that you need to do trades, okay? Because in the Monday Night Wars, when you had Raw and Nitro, it's not like there was a reason that somebody showed up on Nitro. Oh, we got traded or whatever. It's just, oh my God, one day there's Razor Ramon's on Nitro. What the hell's going on? So like you can just like, you have your people on one side, you have your people on the other side. Swerve does a big long feud feuds with Bobby Lashley, wins in the end. You decide, you know what? Feud's over. Next week, Bobby Lashley just shows up on Collision. That's his new brand. And a month down the road, somebody from Collision, they just show up on Dynamite. You don't even have to have a reason for it. Just as long as you've got the separations and you've got X number of people that are here, X number of people there, you don't need to make a big deal out of it. Like you don't need to make a big deal out of it. Just have a Dynamite roster and a Collision roster. They're largely locked, but they're also fluid. Sometimes if someone's needed, they go. Sometimes if someone's needed, they go. You want to shake some things up every now and then. A big star switches sides. Two big stars. But don't make a big deal out of it. You don't have to say we're switching Moxley and Will Ospreay. Just one day, Ospreay finishes a feud. He shows up on Collision the next week. Month later, Moxley finishes his feud. He ends up on Dynamite the next week. Doesn't need to be a big thing. But it makes it easier to do so many things that you can't do when you have one roster with 200 people across 3 shows. And so, 180 people are doing nothing most of the time.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, you can't do those switches frequently because the real benefit to this, isn't something you've talked about before, is if we know that these 25 featured stars are always on Wednesday, and these 25 featured stars are always on Saturday, then promoting and advertising exactly what they're going to do on that show isn't going to be as needed to sell tickets. Because if you're
exactly
Ospreay, a Swerve, and a Hangman fan, and you know that they're on the Collision show, and they announce Collision in your town, you're going, I'm buying a ticket because I like those guys, and they need to be on that show consistently. And I think there's, in my opinion, so many more upsides to it than there are down.
Well, I've talked about that for a long time. Sometimes AEW will have no card announced or very few matches announced until the day before. And, I'll say, God, can we get some matches announced or whatever? And then, SmackDown comes along, and it's like the day before, they only have 2 things announced. And people are like, well, how come you're so down on AEW, but you're not as down on WWE about it? And, there's a reason for that. And that is, if you look at the SmackDown roster, okay? I'll take SmackDown here, if I can find the whole roster. All right, the top stars on SmackDown, we got Cody Rhodes, we got Nakamura now, Motor City Machine Guns, AJ Styles, Andrade, the Street Profits. I could just go down this list here. And the fact of the matter is, Kevin Owens, LA Knight, fact of the matter is, if you buy a ticket for SmackDown, you are going to see one of these people on the show. Guaranteed. There's never going to be a SmackDown where, you're not going to see at least 1 or 2 or 4 of all of those people that I just mentioned. Whereas on Dynamite, because you have one roster, and, there's so many people on it, if you don't tell me in advance, I have absolutely on Monday, if they've announced 1 match for Dynamite, I have no idea who's going to be on the show. None whatsoever. There have been pay-per-views where, MJF won a big match at pay-per-view. He's not on the next Dynamite. Is Will Ospreay going to be on the show? Are the Young Bucks going to be on? I have no idea. No idea who's going to be on any show without a lineup. That's the difference. On Raw, you can go through the Raw roster, and it's you're going to see the Judgment Day. You're going to see Gunther. You're going to see whoever. Well, you won't see Bronson Reed now, but you would have. They're on every show in some segment or another. It's the same thing with NXT. You can announce all of the things for NXT, but even if you don't, you're going to see Trick on the show. You're going to see Ridge on the show. You're going to see whoever. It's because there are separate rosters, and they utilize the top stars on every single one of the shows. It's not like that in AEW. It's not like that.
Yeah, when tickets go on sale for Raw, you know that 75% at least of the main stars on that brand are going to be on that show, even though you're buying tickets a month in advance. And it makes you more confident in spending your money when you don't know, especially if there's a lot of people that, just have certain people they're willing to pay money to see. There's people that are diehard Ospreay fans, MJF fans, whatever. And when you don't know, it's you're hesitant to spend your money.
We had a lot of... apparently you did a much better job calmly explaining this than I did yesterday. You're convincing some people here.
Not having Semp making dumb arguments helps.
Oh, this person says, I can confirm I went to Dynamite the one time they came to town. MJF didn't show up, and he was the champion at the time. It's like, yep, that happens. Yeti Pot Pie says, I hear it all the time. AW didn't know who was available to work such and such a show until they fixed that problem. Okay, first off, here's the thing. That has nothing to do with a brand split. Okay, nothing. Now, yes, I know that excuse is often used. We don't know who's going to be available next week. But I have talked to people there, not Tony, because I'm sure he would say that same thing, but I've talked to people there, and they're like, listen, you know who's available next week, okay? It's not a freaking mystery. Sometimes there will be something, like when Sting's parents were ill and he was helping them, like, yeah, Tony didn't know if he was going to be there or not, so he couldn't advertise him. But, like, you know if Adam Cole's available. You know if Kyle O'Reilly's available. You know if MJF is available. Like, you know if the vast majority of these people are available. Yes, there are people that have limited dates. You know how many dates are left. If they have dates left and you want them on the show, they're on the show. So it's not a good excuse. Like,
and even limited dates.
Actually, hold that thought. Limited dates after the break. Observer Live. Welcome to the special tour of Figure 4 Weekly Headquarters, as promised. Today I will be accompanied by my assistant Vincenzo, so let's get moving. Hey, don't worry about it. Today's a special day, I'll drive. Vince, today's gonna be a good day, so let's not F anything up, okay? Now, I'd like to tell everybody, I just want to give a short speech on the way to the compound here today, and that is that we are going through very tough economic times right now. Right, Vince? It's time of stock market crashing, the yen is devalued, a time of woe and want. And many of you watching this right now, for all I know, are unemployed. But the good thing is, and I always like to look on the bright side, as Vince is well aware, the good news is that for every dark cloud, there is a silver lining. And the silver lining is that Figure 4 Weekly is doing great. It's a huge success right now. Subscriptions are up, quality is down, profit margins are skyrocketing, things are going very well. So the one thing is that I don't want to make it seem like money is everything, because money cannot buy happiness, but what it can buy is enormous houses, and that makes me happy. So we will be going to see my enormous house, the Figure 4 Weekly compound, and that's where we're heading right now. I got some stuff I want to add, but go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, it's just that if you have limited dates on people, having the divided rosters, I think, helps you, Because if you have Will Ospreay for, say, 45 dates a year,
that's almost every show
most
with
collision.
one brand.
Yes. And you won't have that issue where you're coming around November and going, oh, darn. It's like, we used him on 9 collisions and we've used him on 35 Dynamites. It's like, crap, we're running out of dates. If you stick with just the one show a week, you got 52 television shows and however many pay-per-views they run, and you just pace yourself out with okay, we got to give him 5 shows off a year. It's like, okay. And it's a lot easier to keep track of and pace. But if you get guys that, oh, shoot, he worked a Rampage. Oh, crap, he worked a Collision. Now we've got 3 less dates. I think you're way easier to keep track if you just limit everybody to that one show a week, especially if they've got contracts that are built around, fewer dates.
It was brought up here, the Death Riders angle currently involves 8 to 9 top stars. All of them can't be exclusive to one show. Yeah, they can, because there's 200 people on the roster. And, we can look at the Bloodline angle, which has about 30 people involved in that in one way or the other, all on one show. There's occasional movement back and forth, but, everybody involved is on one show, And the thing is this, also. Here's how, everyone's talking about the Moxley Death Rider storyline, okay? I have a problem with this storyline, and the problem actually would be solved if we had 2 rosters, okay? Right now, Moxley's crew is attempting to take over the show. They're taking over AEW, okay? And so we've got this deal where, they're killing everybody. Guys like Orange are stepping up. Guys like Jay White are stepping up, et cetera, okay? But at the same time, we have a feud with Swerve and the Hurt Business.
Syndicate.
Hurt Syndicate. And, it's in a totally separate universe. Swerve was just recently the champion. He doesn't seem to care at all about Jon Moxley. He's never involved in any of it. The Hurt Business is never involved in any of it. Syndicate. There's other storylines where, there's no involvement whatsoever. It's 2 different units. So he's taken over the show, but, sort of whatever, I'm just doing my own thing. That doesn't even make any sense. If you had 2 shows and Moxley and the Death Riders were taking over Collision, fine. Have the Hurt Syndicate doing whatever they're doing. It's a different universe. They're doing whatever on Wednesday. So, of course, they're not worried about what's happening on Collision because they're on Dynamite. But by having one roster, it's he's taking over the company, but only half the people care. The other half ignore it completely. That would be so much easier dealt with if he took over one show and the other people were on the other show. Right?
Yep, and it's not like you don't have the Callis family as a big group, the Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah, the Callis family has nothing to do with Moxley's takeover. Nothing. Kyle Fletcher never acknowledges or addresses it in any way. It's just whatever. We'll just do our thing.
They could do their thing on a different show.
It says, why should I care if the Death Riders only taken over one show? I don't know. The Bloodline took over one show. It seemed to work just fine. They just took over SmackDown. And they do virtually nothing whatsoever on Raw. And it seemed to work really, really well. At the end of the day, you can argue this or agree. At the end of the day, there's 2 things. There's math, and there's what we're seeing right now. The math aspect of it is everything we've been talking about. More people get opportunities when you have a show with 100 wrestlers as opposed to a show with 200. And you can look at the Collision and the Dynamite numbers. And right now, Collision does basically half of what Dynamite does. And you can look at Raw and SmackDown, and they're doing exactly the same with their 2 brands. Exactly the same.
And creatively, it's so much easier if you're writing Collision and don't have to take into account what happens on Wednesday. You can write your show, and at the end of your show, there's nothing else that's going to screw with your show until your next show. But if you have to wait and see, who was used on Wednesday and who's going to be available for Saturday, it creates a lot more creative chaos and last-minute booking because you're not sure who's getting used on each show. But if Saturday's in its own universe, then you can book and not worry about what the Death Riders are going to do on Wednesday.
And I want to make another comment here. It's about booking of AEW. I just want to make this clear again, because I've actually seen a lot of stuff online with people blaming different people for different things. And yes, if you're a a Chris Jericho, if you're a Jon Moxley, if you're a Swerve Strickland, if you're a guy at that level, yeah, you have an incredible amount of input into what you're doing. But it is Tony's show, and you're going to do what he wants to do. So if you don't like something, and it's, Jon Moxley's got a lot of influence, but he's not the guy to blame ultimately, okay? Jericho's not the guy to blame ultimately. Swerve is not the guy to blame ultimately. Even, and I see a lot online about Will Washington, Tony Khan's right-hand man, and he ain't doing any... I shouldn't say he's not doing anything. That's not fair. Like, he's got stuff that he does, but, like, you cannot blame Will Washington for anything. It's all Tony. Just like back in the day, it was all Vince McMahon. I've heard many stories of top... I'm talking top, absolutely tippy-top guys in AEW who have, like, sat in there with Tony for hours and hours and hours and argued, and at the end of the day, Tony is going to do what he wants to do, and that's it. So anything you like is Tony. Anything you don't like is Tony. Everyone else should just be like, they're catching strays here is what's happening. So, yeah. All right, what else do we got here? You didn't see Dynamite.
I said I did not.
Had some good matches.
No, really?
It's actually... they did... Here's the notable things about the show, okay? The Continental Classic matches were good. So we had the opening match. If I can find it here. Kyle Fletcher, Shelton Benjamin. Thought it was great. And I think the notable thing about it is, like, whatever your casual fan, if such a thing exists, thinks or doesn't think about everything, the fans that went to this arena, they cared about the match, and they care about the sanctity of the Continental Classic. Because when this Kyle Fletcher cradled this guy and pinned him using the ropes, that was genuine heat. Like, people were angry that this guy had cheated in this Continental Classic. And, of course, Don's there, so that helps. But they're doing a great job with Fletcher. I still argue he should win the whole thing, but I'm not confident. Then we had, I swear to God, I hope, like, they got to end this thing quick and just everybody move on. It's the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal, okay? We have only two men in the match that have any chance of winning. It's Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. And then there's Lio Rush, Rocky Romero, Brian Cage, Lance Archer, Dante and Darius the Butcher, Evil Uno, Mark Davis, and Action Andretti. I'm telling you, the Green Guy Tag Team Battle Royal on NXT was 10 times as good as this match. There's, like, no heat early. And then it finally comes down to four guys. Cole and O'Reilly throw out Archer and Cage. And suddenly they ring the bell. I said, what? What? Like, first I thought, isn't MJF in the Dynamite? And then everyone's like, no, he'll defend against the winner. And then they actually had advertised at one point that next week it was going to be MJF versus the winner, okay? And then I watched this match, and, like, two men won. And then they announced that Cole and O'Reilly face off next week, and the winner gets MJF at Winter is Coming.
Oops.
I don't care what the announcer said and what the graphics said. Did anybody tell anybody going in that that was the rules this year? Anybody? So anyway, that was bizarre. And it also doesn't matter what the announcers and the graphics say to the live crowd, which can't hear the announcers or see the graphics. And when two men were left in the ring, they chanted, "Throw him out," because they didn't know what was going on. Don't try to defend that. The crowd had no idea what was going on because they can't hear the announcers or see your graphics. They were like, what? Throw him out.
This is the third set of rules for this thing that they've had so far, right?
They've had many different rules over the years.
But they had the...
No, they were chanting, throw him out. Sorry. Go ahead.
But originally, the winner got the ring. And I think MJF entered and won and kept the ring a second time.
I think so.
Then the winner challenged him for the ring, and now the two winners challenge each other for the shot at the ring.
Yes.
They keep adding another level.
I'm wondering if maybe it was something where, like, but I can't imagine them not doing that Adam Cole MJF match at.
Did
I actually have a theory.
MJF's movie got extended?
I was going to say I don't want to say this or not, but maybe the idea was that what they originally advertised was going to happen. MJF would face a winner on next week's show, and then the winner's not Adam Cole. Maybe it's Kyle O'Reilly or whatever. And Cole screws MJF in that match. The other guy wins the ring, and then Adam Cole and MJF end up going at the pay-per-view. But then maybe he had an extra week he had to film, and so they had to cancel that, and then they did the two winners, and the winner... Maybe that's what happened. But the whole thing is just weird. And then Brody King and Claudio Castagnoli was the main event. Also a very good match. And same thing. Heel cheated.
I'm guessing they beat the crap out of each other.
They very much did. Claudio hit a low blow behind the rest back neutralizer for the pin. A lot of cheating by these heels because they can't do outside interference. I will say that. So
well, it's
then,
not like heels cheating is new.
Yeah, I like how this Twitch chat, by the way, is still advertising the Dave and Bryan London Q&A. I think maybe we could take that advertisement down. I got some other things I'd like to plug if we can do that. So then the other thing that was notable was they did do an angle after Jay White and Pac, and Jay White won. Very good match. Very good wrestling. And you know, it's funny. It's funny. So Pac is part of the Death Riders, okay? Pac. Jay White is a babyface. So the thing with Jay White as a babyface is he still kind of works as a heel. He still got, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, the first, 3-4 minutes of this match, Jay is just getting heat on Pac. And, like, so the psychology is totally backwards. Like, this babyface is getting heel heat on a heel. And I swear to God, this crowd is comatose. Absolutely, positively dead silent. And then finally, Pac cuts him off and, like, throws him into something. And now the heel is actually getting heat on the babyface. And then the crowd comes to life. It's almost like it matters. But anyway, Jay White gets the win. And then Moxley hits the ring afterwards. And they go after Jay White. Hangman's music hit. He comes out. Apparently, Hangman has turned babyface. He's just a babyface now. There was no, like, turn, but people like him. So he comes out. And then Orange is dressed as a cameraman. He attacks Moxley from behind. And Jay and Orange throw Moxley into the ring. Jay lays him out with the Blade Runner. Hangman hits the buckshot. And so the four-way, I talked about this a couple of days ago. It is a four-way at World's End, but Christian is not in the four-way. It is going to be Moxley, Orange, Jay, and Hangman. And they did show Christian lurking around, teasing that he might cash in on the winner. And, I mean, the one thing I will say is, how are they going to explain, like, Hangman even getting a world championship match after the whole story of the pay-per-view was he just kept losing? Guess we'll find out. Back in a moment with more Observer Live.
We've almost reached the pinnacle of the tour, but this is one of the most important things. This is the computer. This is the workstation where I do the majority of the actual physical part of putting Figure 4 together. I do the writing here, the editing here, of course the phone calls, even the microphone here when we used to do Wrestling Observer Live, which has since died. And in fact, I better put the screensaver on here so this doesn't get burned into the screen. But putting the newsletter together, people understand, it's a lot of hard work and dedication, like 2 to 3 hours per week sometimes I have to spend on it. And hold on a second. Figure 4, who's this? Carl Thorillo? Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listen. Can I call you back? I'm doing something here right now. My fridge? Yes, running. Hello? Prank call. Anyway, this is like I said, computer. Got the TV here. This is pretty much the place. This is going to be a quick tour of the trophy room. This is actually my trophy case. It's made of mahogany, very expensive. But what is worth far more than the case itself is what is inside. and that is the medals from the various sports and the accomplishments that I've achieved during my lifetime. This first drawer here is my gymnastics medals. Here, I got state and such. These are my Taekwondo medals. These down here, amateur wrestling medals. And down here are the 26 medals that I won in the 5-kilometer walk down at the Bothell Landing over the course of the past 5 years. And, you know, I realize that I'm a 4-sport superstar right here, and some people, you know, it might bother them that they haven't had such achievements in their life, but I think that the whole point is that you can achieve anything. You know, if you can make a great pie, you can win the pie eating contest at the Puyallup Fair, and I don't know, hell, if you can eat a good pie, you might win the pie eating contest as well. So there's achievement in this life for everybody.
Well, the good news is they canceled the tsunami warning, so that's good. It's a big earthquake, though, so hopefully there's not another one. Lance, what do we got coming up with TNA?
Final Resolution coming up, not this coming weekend, but the next. We are in Atlanta, Georgia, center stage for Final Resolution, and then a TV taping the night after that.
Alrighty, we can check that out at TNA Wrestling. No longer Impact Wrestling. It's back to TNA. Yes. And Lance is normally here every week, but you know how things go. It's here, there, it's everywhere. But tomorrow I'll be back for Fun Friday. And actually a lot of stuff coming up here today. There's a Bryan and V show talking AEW and NXT for subscribers. And we have got a special After Dark radio coming up tonight. This will be podcast only. The show moves to Sports Byline in January. But we're going to have a fun guest on talking some cryptids. You know what a cryptid is, Lance?
No, I do not.
Like a monster of some sort, a Bigfoot, you know? It's going to be a good time. Very excited. You can only listen to this show at WrestlingObserver.com. And feel free to sign up because even when the show goes to Sports Byline, you're going to get a bonus half hour or more of the interview as a WrestlingObserver.com subscriber. So get signed up today, either that or YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You'll all get the bonus if you sign up there. So that's it. Thanks, Lance, as always. Callers and listeners, over to the studio. We'll talk to you next time, Wrestling Observer Live.